My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of the 1978 movie Superman. And this was actually a first time watch, and I know people love this movie. Many say it's one of the best comic book movies ever made. Many people call it a classic. Many people say this movie is iconic. But I just could not disagree more. I thought this movie fucking sucked, and I find it to be super overrated. So let's begin by talking about the cast. And I do like Christopher Reeve in this movie. He's good as Superman, he's good as Clark Kent, and he carries this movie well enough. I just wish he had more to work with. Like, his character just lacks any bit of depth. Margot Kidder, I thought, did a perfectly fine job. Gene Hackman is fine, but this take on Lex Luthor is just so forgettable. This character is just so bland and he doesn't stand out in any way. Marlon Brando does a perfectly fine job. Jeff East as Teenage Clark does a perfectly fine job. Glenn Ford as Jonathan Kent is good, but I'll talk more about that character later. And Jackie Cooper as Perry White does a perfectly fine job, and everybody else I didn't mention does a perfectly fine job. The cast is a bright spot in this movie. I do like the production design, and the effects for a movie back in 1978 are pretty good. I do like the music by John Williams. It's iconic and it really works within context of this movie, but it's not one of my favorite scores by him, and I would never listen to it outside of this movie. There's a couple decent moments between Clark and Lois, and despite me hating it, I can respect the impact this movie had on Hollywood, especially when it comes to the comic book movie genre. But let's talk about what I hated, beginning with the characters of Superman and Lex Luthor. They were just so bland and forgettable, and they're not interesting at all. And on top of that, the story in this movie sucks. Like, we get the Krypton destruction, we get teenage Clark and him getting raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent. He moves to Metropolis to get a job at the Daily Planet. Superman saves Lois Lane and they form a relationship. Um, and then Lex Luthor does his evil plan. And it just feels so random. And then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. But nothing that happens has any weight behind it, and I just found it to be very uninteresting. It's thematically empty, there's no real interesting character work, and the story is just, like I said, completely underwritten. And it pisses me off that Jonathan and Martha Kent, like his parents, have a giant effect on the person he becomes. And we spend like no time with them. Like, I knew the story to this movie going into it, and I was shocked that Jonathan Kent died as early as he did. And it just felt like one giant missed opportunity. And the pacing is just atrocious. Every scene is way too long, and it just feels so dragged out, and I feel like you could have easily cut out 40, maybe 50 minutes of this movie. The big threat at the end of this movie is just a bunch of silly nonsense, but not in a good, fun way, but in a really contrived, boring way. The big threat at the end just feels so empty, and I just did not care. So, like, the cast is good, the direction is good, and it had a huge impact on this genre. But I just hate the script. It does absolutely nothing for me. It's never entertaining, it's never interesting, it's never emotional, it's never engaging. It's actually a really boring movie, and I know this is a real hot take, but I would never watch this movie again, so I'm giving Superman a 3 out of 10. I understand why people who grew up with it might like it, but that's not me. Anyways, Superman, have you seen it? What did you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin,